It's Hollie's Hotspurs back with another one. Chatting all things Tottenham, we're second to none. Special guests every time, if it's win, lose or draw. The passion is high like Harry Kane when he scores. Or when Lloris makes a world-class save. We got Højbjerg running the mid every game. Settle down, stick around, share your thoughts with the panel. And make sure you're subscribing to the channel. COYS.
Hello and welcome to another Hollie's Hotspurs Live. I wish the wording in that intro video about Harry Kane scoring was something we could actually talk about tonight, but sadly not. I kind of haven't brought the new intro in at a good time. But nevertheless, to try and go over everything that happened and have a bit of therapy, shall we say, I'm joined by three excellent guests. First of all, we have the Tottenham feed, otherwise nicknamed as Cookie. Cookie, how are you tonight?
Yeah, not bad. Feel a little bit better than I did last night, to be honest. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get into it, and I'm happy to be on. So thanks for having me.
Right, cheers for joining. And like I said, it'll be nice just to talk everything over because after the whole non-carbon emissions things yesterday, I was kind of glad I didn't cycle to the lane. But nevertheless, as well, we're also joined by Mitch. Mitch, how are you feeling tonight? Hello, Mitch.
Okay.
Is he there? We'll go over to Karl. Karl, how are you? We'll drive back to Mitch in a minute.
Yeah, not bad, mate. Not bad. Obviously disappointed yesterday, but then I think the worst thing about it now for a lot of the time is that you kind of get over that pretty quickly with the expectations, don't you? So, and that's the worst feeling, I think, because it kind of means you're going in knowing what could happen. And I think, unfortunately, we all had those fears, and it materialised after half time again, didn't it?
It really did. I feel like it's a running theme at the moment. But Mitch, you're back in the room. How are you feeling tonight?
Yeah, sorry about that. No, I'm all right. I kind of like the idea that this is being done a day later than the game because it gives me the opportunity to calm down and actually reflect with more than just feelings and emotions. So I'm all right now. But yeah, for sure, yesterday, straight after the game, I was not a happy bunny. Let's say it's getting on my nerves again. So. Yeah.
I'm glad the theme amongst us all is not feeling great. But like I said, it's good to talk about it on the Monday because, like you said, Mitch, you're not full of fire and hate. I mean, I'm still a little bit full of hate because obviously Harry Winks has now got a bag on his head. But nevertheless, we'll leave Winks for another day. Now, before we even kick off and start talking about what actually happened yesterday, I think the moment that kind of circled around me at the lane was obviously the passing of Jimmy Greaves. And I just want to point it out there. I think congratulate Chelsea fans, and I never thought I'd say this, but the fact that we all came together in that moment to say thanks, and the fact that he's obviously passed, I think was a great moment. I'll just go around the room because obviously I'm not old enough to obviously witness the greatness of Jimmy Greaves, but I know exactly what that man is all about. So we'll go around the room quickly and then we'll crack on. So Cookie, obviously it was a sad day yesterday of Jimmy Greaves, but what do you make of his career, basically? It's probably an easy question, but I'll just throw it to you.
Yeah, again, so obviously I'm not old enough to remember him playing for Spurs, but obviously I talked to my dad and my father-in-law about him, and he's one exceptional striker, you know, one of Britain's best ever footballers to come out of Britain, and yeah, he was a Tottenham legend, and his records are phenomenal. Like some of the records I see yesterday being tweeted and being advertised was simply incredible. What a player, and sad for both teams. Like you said, Chelsea were good yesterday in coming together with Spurs just to remember him and seeing the legends there, you know, the Gary Mabbotts, the Ledley Kings, Perrimans, Glenn Hoddles just being there as well was a great touch, and I thought it was really well done yesterday by Tottenham. Simply
it really was
one of the best. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not very often I congratulate Tottenham on doing something well, but Mitch, I think that was kind of a coming together yesterday.
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. And you know, it was always going to be when you have a player as great as Jimmy Greaves was, you know, the rivalry gets set apart, even if it's just for that, you know, minutes applause at the start of the game. Because, you know, players play for different clubs throughout their career, and he obviously is one of our greatest ever goal scorer and one of our greatest ever players, but he also did an amazing job at Chelsea. You know, he played for West Ham as well, and all the teams that he's played for, and hopefully many more have sort of paid respects to him as well. So no, it was a lovely tribute, and yeah, it was quite emotional seeing it, and just hearing everyone talk about and share their memories of him as a person and as a footballer. So yeah, it was a really, really nice touch. Just and obviously he'll be greatly missed.
100%, and that's the thing, Karl. I think we've kind of already alluded it to already. The fact that obviously he wasn't just a Tottenham man, regardless of his being our best striker, but the fact that everybody, I think, came together, not even just Chelsea fans or Tottenham fans. I think the whole football community.
Yeah, I think everyone would have been shocked. I mean, yesterday was kind of, in a way, poetic, the fixture, because, Jimmy playing for Chelsea started, made his debut for them at White Hart Lane and scored for them. Mm. So the fact that, it was Tottenham-Chelsea on that day was kind of, quite poetic. But obviously, and before you say it, Hollie, I'm not old enough to have seen him play, thankfully, not that old. But, so as Cookie said, I speak to my dad who tells me that he's the best he's ever seen. And for the younger supporters, when you look at those numbers, you are looking at the original Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, because Jimmy Greaves was them back then. He was putting numbers up that were just frightening and unbelievable. So I think all of football missed him. Great character. I think, I grew up with Saint and Greavesy on a Saturday morning, which kind of like the original Soccer Saturday. So yeah, big part of your childhood. And as we say, our greatest ever striker. And we'd probably be a long while before we see one just as good, and Harry Kane, I think, is the closest. My dad said he's the closest he's seen to Greaves in that position. And yeah, just a real shame. But at least, that fixture was probably one that was at least the right fixture for it to be on, given his history with those two clubs.
100%. And it's interesting, obviously, you say that he's probably that generation of Messi and Ronaldo, because it was interesting at half time when they were talking to all like the Tottenham legends about him and what was he like, and the fact that I can't remember which player it was for the life of me, but he said the fact that he just glided across the pitch even. And he was like, but you do remember how bad those pitches were. Yet he just effortlessly did it. And I think for me, that kind of hit home as well, because imagine if he was playing right now with all the nutrition and all of the nice pitches we play on now, how amazing he would be. But it was a brilliant send-off to Jimmy, like we've kind of alluded to. So rest in peace, mate. But obviously we need to get down to the business, which was that game yesterday. And to be honest with you, I was actually quite optimistic. I know how bad that sounds, but the fact that lineup to me actually excited me. So Cookie, I'll come to you first. What were your thoughts kind of on the lineup? I think that midfield for me between Lo Celso, Ndombele and obviously Dele, I thought for me, I was kind of thinking to myself, okay, Nuno's actually going for it. So what was your first takes on that lineup? Yeah,
I was happy with that lineup. Like you said, to see like Dele, Højbjerg, and Ndombele playing behind sort of Son, Kane and Lo Celso, I thought, Jesus Christ, we're going to go for it today, I was quite surprised. I think Chelsea was surprised by the lineup, to be honest. I don't think they expected a couple of players to make it back, just like we didn't. But yeah, it looked like intent from Nuno. It looked like he was going to play on the front foot, which is brilliant to see. I was happy. Yeah, I mean, even the back four, fine. Everything seemed fine to me, and I thought we could start the game as we did and start strong. So for me, that lineup was probably the best I've seen in a long time, especially on paper. For a good few games now, that's the strongest team I've seen, and probably the strongest team we could have put out, to be honest, with a fully fit squad. So yeah, it's good to see.
Yeah, it was interesting, and like I said, I think to see Lo Celso put back in the team, for me, I was kind of like, oh, okay, then we're going to hopefully try and put some balls in behind. So I'll come to you, Mitch. Were you impressed to see Lo Celso start, or were you a bit taken back that obviously we're going to set from the attacking squad?
I think if there was one thing I would have done differently to Nuno, it would have been maybe to have Skip in that role. Well, not in that role, but in for Lo Celso. Oh, yeah. I think that I'm not disappointed that he went for it and he went with such an attacking lineup, but I always felt like at some point it was just going to go a little bit flat. And it did in the second half, and that's why Ndombele and Lo Celso were both taken off. I feel like one of those two would have made more of an impact off of the bench, because, yes, we played really well in the first half, but when the second half came, and especially after we went 1-0 down, it became very difficult because Chelsea had figured us out by then. Kante had come on to stop the threat that we were posing. All of a sudden, we've not really got any options to then bring on maybe Brangil, but again, inexperienced. So I would have personally had Skip and Højbjerg with maybe Ndombele in front of them, and then maybe someone like Lo Celso in the second half. But I'm not going to bash that lineup that he went with in the end, because I'm happy that it was as attacking as it was, and it proved that lineup can work. In the first half, I thought we were pretty good, apart from the obvious lack of a goal. I thought it was a pretty good first half performance. So yeah, I'm not going to shake the lineup too much.
No, it is interesting you say that, because like you said, maybe the thoughts of Lo Celso coming off, and then you've got to think, okay, they're bringing on Kante, and we've got the likes of Harry Winks to bring on and make a difference, hence the bag on his head. But obviously to you, Karl, what were your kind of thoughts? Did you kind of have the same sort of reactions to obviously Cookie and Mitch, or do you think, like Mitch said, it could have been tampered with a tiny little bit maybe?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you look back in hindsight, you kind of think, yeah, okay, maybe skip. But we don't know whether, given that he played on Thursday, he just didn't want to push him too far. I think, though, as the guys have said, I'm not going to knock the lineup, because the one thing we'd all said leading up to that game was that at least if we lose, we want to go out having give it a go rather than go out with a whimper. So with that lineup, you kind of thought going into the game, well, at least it looks like he is going to have a go. So, yeah, I'd rather lose having given it a go than just sit back, defend, lose a game poorly. And you've got to say, looking at that first half, there's some encouragement there. That was a great first half performance, where I would just say we just edged that game. And maybe what he could have done just at half time was tweak it, maybe thought, right, maybe I just tweak this here, especially once you see Chelsea, mate, you might need to kind of counter that. But I don't think anyone can knock that, selection to begin the game with, because it's what we'd all kind of been calling out for in the week, isn't it? We wanted to see us start attacking and playing a bit more attacking football. So it would be harsh now to look back just because the game's been lost and go, well, what a silly lineup that was to play. So I think, he went brave. I'm glad he did. But as we say, looking back in hindsight, you might think there was a tweak, because I think, the second half we'll get on to, but we did look a little bit more solid once Skip come on.
It was a shame, wasn't it, with Bergwijn and Moura missing out. We just lost a bit of pace, didn't we, in the side? I think that's my only thing I was a little bit negative about, is obviously they're not playing due to injury. It's just a shame we didn't have that little bit of pace down either side, but obviously couldn't be helped because they couldn't make it back for the game.
Especially as well, because obviously Lucas, I think, has been on fire in recent weeks. The fact that my biggest pet peeve of him is that he would drive with the ball and just run into a player and lose it. But now he's adding that extra game where he's passing the ball before he actually knows that he's going to collide with someone. So for him to miss out on a fixture that big as well, I think was a bit disappointing. Like you said, it is the pace kind of issue as well. But obviously that first half, I think the best chance we had was obviously Reguilón. Now, I don't know what was going through my mind. I mean, I know what was going through my mind. I probably would have done the same, but my cross would have been a little bit better in that situation. But Mitch, I come to you. Do you think Reggie should have had that shot straight off rather than thinking about passing it across the goal?
Yeah, the option was there to take it on himself, but I actually thought he should have passed it earlier. I think he could have knocked it into Lo Celso's path for him to run onto. Just put it into the space in front of him. A bit like I think it was the Man City goal on the counter. Last season at home, where Lo Celso just ran onto a pass and finished it. I think if Reguilón had just looked up a little bit earlier, or maybe just released it a little bit earlier, I think Lo Celso would have been clear. But the option was there to take it on himself. I just don't know if he's playing with that sort of confidence to go on and have a shot. But definitely a massive opportunity. And if we'd have put that away, things might have been a little bit different.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, we all sat here saying, oh, yeah, we would have had the shot. But when he first joined Tottenham, he was having shots all the time. I don't really know what's going on, Mitch. Do you think it's that lack of confidence maybe? Because I thought in the first half his defensive duties he wasn't too brilliant. I thought he was having a little bit of a mare, like misplacing passes, and I know footballers do that all the time, but do you reckon it is a confidence kind of thing with Reggie, or do you just think it's run of the rough at the moment?
I don't think Reguilón's one of those players that's too impacted by sort of confidence and the way things are going. I think that his style of play is very much the same all the time. And that is he loves to burst forward, and he has to track back in those situations as well. Oh God, sorry if I'm breaking up a little bit.
That's right.
But yeah, I think that I also think he should have had the shot, but I think that there's been a couple of instances this season where he's had that shot and it's just not worked out for him. And I mean, Lo Celso was the option there, but as a defensive player, his timing and his sort of ability to pick out the perfect moment for that pass isn't going to be as good as the likes of maybe Son or Bergwijn or someone else. So yeah, it's a really difficult one. But I really like Reggie. I think he's going to be a really good left back for us. But you know, it's a tough one because I think he gets compared to Danny Rose a lot. And because of how good Danny Rose was, especially in that 16-17 season, it's always going to be tough for him because he's got a lot of similar attributes in terms of how he likes to get forward and run with the ball and play in that advanced role. But I don't think it would play on his shoulders too much. I think that once the rest of the team starts clicking and we do start playing as we did in the first half, he'll be in that situation a lot more often. And, there will be instances where he does play the right pass or he does take on the shot and it may be more of a benefit, Yeah,
100%. I think, like you said, I think it's maybe just that bit of time. I know we say this every week. We just need to give the team time. But I think with Reggie, we have got a diamond there. We just need to give him a bit more time to shine through and it will come. I mean, with the likes of the comparison from Orange said it already in the chat that Danny Rose would have gone for goals. So the fact that you said that as well, Mitch, the fact that obviously he gets compared to Danny Rose.
But with that, Hollie, you have to remember Danny Rose took a while to get to where he was, the Danny Rose that we love. He was very raw when he first come on the scene, burst on the scene with that goal against Arsenal. But then he had to go out and get them loans and get that experience under his belt. And even when he came back, he was making mistakes. I mean, he cost us a cup game at Arsenal, didn't he, by, on the halfway line getting caught. You develop into that. And Reggie, for me, he's very raw still, very young, very raw. He needs to work on his distribution because he does let us down with his passing at vital moments. There was one at Palace the week before where Mora went on a great run, knocks it out wide to him, and then he loses it when there was a great ball on to Kane. But he's raw, he's young. There is a fullback there, got some great pace. We've already seen him deliver great crosses in the past to Kane to set up some great goals. So you have to bear with him and give him that time that, young players will have some ups and some real downs. And unfortunately, that consistency will come as he gets more experience and the years come on and he'll improve. And as you say, he'll be a great fullback for us. But we have got to be a little bit patient there. But he does have to work on his distribution because sometimes he lets himself down with his passing.
Sorry.
No, go on, mate.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, I cut you off there. I think my internet's having on a madness, to be honest. It's like glitching out all the time. But it's interesting you say that as well because on the other side, we've obviously got a young fullback in Emerson. Now, I think yesterday he played okay. Again, I think maybe his attributes coming back is maybe something to maybe have a look at. But again, he made some challenges in areas that I thought, okay, you've won that ball back, well done. And he actually kept it under safety. So that being said, Cookie, do you think, again, on that side, we've got someone that potentially will be the answer to our prayers that we've been calling out for a long time and a right back?
Yeah, I still think he's got a lot to learn. Obviously, he's still young. It's a new country, brand new teams. Only played a couple of games. Made a great block in the first, 15 minutes in the box. Got back well there. I felt Alonso had him a little bit towards obviously in the second half and towards the end of the first half. Alonso got a lot of joy against him. I don't think he was tight enough to Alonso. Made him work for it enough. And I felt the ball got stuck under his feet a little bit. He had a few little wobbles. But he's definitely someone that could grow. He's someone that could grow into a good right back for Spurs. I understand he's a player that likes to get back and forwards and likes to attack. I do feel that Tanganga probably would have done a better job yesterday had he been available. I would like to have seen Tanganga at right back in a London derby, just like I would like to see him on Sunday. I think Tanganga would play at right back for me. But Emerson needs time, he needs minutes. I would like to see him start on Wednesday against Wolves again and just keep bedding him in, giving those minutes, get him used to a settled back four as much as we can and hopefully see the best of him, yeah, without a doubt.
100%, and the fact that you said settled as well, because our back four's been all over the place lately with obviously injuries, and I think the best thing, 100%, and I think that does kind of change the dynamic of everything. And obviously being said, Mitch, we saw that Dyer came back into the squad, and I think that he kept Lukaku obviously quiet because he obviously didn't really do a lot. But that being said, do you think having Dyer back in that back line and obviously being in partnership with Romero is something that you could see going forward as well?
Yeah, I do, and it's weird because I'm not a massive Eric Dyer fan. However, I think that he's been one of our best players this season. And I'm not going to slate him for that. As long as he keeps up the form and he keeps himself focused, then I'd more than happily see a partnership of Dyer and Romero. I don't particularly think our back four was that bad yesterday. We conceded the first goal from a silly set piece. Second goal was a bit key. And God, I keep coming in and out. I'm really sorry, mine.
Oh.
Yeah, honestly, I thought the centre-back pairing played really well yesterday. They was unlucky to let 3 goals in, to be honest. And like Mitch said, the 3 goals we did concede were disappointing. 2 from a set piece and then 1 deflection that, let's be honest, it'll only happen to Spurs. To come off Dyer like that, to hit the inside of the post and trickle along the line, like Spurs would never get a goal that way. We would for us at the other end. That would never happen to Tottenham. That would only happen in our own net, and it happened. So for me, it was very disappointing to concede those 3 goals the way we did.
They only really started getting pulled apart, and Lukaku only really started becoming that major influence from about the 75th minute on, didn't they? And they were both tired. You could see, Dyer's got that knock, so he was starting to get tired. Romero was obviously, with his match fitness, he was starting to get tired. And at that point, the game then getting stretched and, we're pushing forward. And that was the only point, really, when Lukaku started bullying them a little bit towards the end. And, he could have had a couple. But the game was done. And there you've just got tired legs that just where the tank is empty, and once the tank's empty and you've got a team piling onto you, especially with that quality, you're always going to be on the wrong end of it. But in that first half especially, Chelsea had a couple of opportunities where they caught us, but we knew that was going to happen. But apart from that, I thought they handled Lukaku really well in that first half, and that we just need to hope that partnership grows from that and gets that confidence, which I think it will. We're seeing whether Dyer manages to stay in that position and keep his form up this year. Who knows? But the start looks promising for them too, definitely.
I don't think I've ever seen Lukaku have a good game against Tottenham, to be honest. Not where he's actually bossed it and run the show. I was saying that to a friend before the game. I said, I don't want to jinx it, but I don't remember Lukaku ever really causing us that many problems for whatever team he's played for. But credit to the Spurs defence yesterday. They kept him quiet. He's been a beast, isn't he, in the past few months, in the last season or two. He's been an absolute beast. So we only limited him really to his hold-up play, which he's going to do well against anyone. He's going to do. He's massive. He's going to do that against anyone. But in terms of shots on goal and actual threat, like you said, Karl, up until like the 70-odd minutes when the game was practically done, we limited him to literally nothing, to be honest, in terms of a threat.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely.
And that's the thing as well, because obviously Alan's put in here as well that funny watching Ndombele marking Lukaku at crosses. I'm not a centre-back. I think the thing we need to highlight about it as well, the fact that Ndombele, for me, I thought it's probably one of the best turnouts I've seen him, in a sense that he managed to keep the energy up for long periods of time. And I know that we shouldn't be saying that about professional football, but with Ndombele, when you haven't seen that consistency throughout a match, I think it needs to have credit when it's due. So Mitch, I come to you. What was your kind of thoughts on Ndombele yesterday?
I was happy. I love him. I love him as a player. I think he's got some of the best raw talent in terms of football at his feet. But I've seen in a long time. A lot of what he does reminds me a little bit of Moussa Dembele, and the way he moves with the ball and just how easy he makes it look. And I think that the 60-odd minute cameo that he did yesterday was pleasing. I had a discussion with someone on Twitter about it last night. Who was still slating him. It's sort of what are you supposed to expect of him if he's not getting a consistent run of games? Yes, I know that he needs to work harder, and his fitness isn't great. It needs to be better, but it's only going to get better by him playing in games like that Chelsea game. And let's not get it twisted. He was one of our better players in that first half. He was the one making things happen. He's that guy that you need in the middle that's going to find the ball through those little gaps that other players may not be willing to risk and play it that way. So I was really impressed with him. You could tell that he was absolutely knackered when he came off. I mean, even for their second goal, again, I think it was him that didn't close Kante down in the first place, which sort of led to him having the shot. So in that sense, it's frustrating. But in my opinion, he needs to be starting for us in every Premier League game. Because if you can get even half a player out of him, he is probably the best option we've got in an attacking and creative sense out of the whole squad. He will be the one that gives Son and Kane those balls and will hopefully start firing a few goals in, fingers crossed, at some point.
Trouble is, this is his pre-season at the moment, isn't it? You know, the guy, unfortunately, this is his pre-season at the moment because he hasn't had those matches. So you've got to give him a few games just to get that match fitness there and try and see, you know, keep that consistency going for longer periods. But as Mitch said, when the squad from a creativity sense is as bare as it is, you can't afford not to start him because that's the guy that's going to make something happen in the centre of the pitch. So, yeah, we need to see him starting more now. This needs to be the run for him. And, you know, you need to work your team around him at the moment.
I just saw him a little bit deep at times again yesterday. I want to see him 15, 20 yards further up the pitch. I say it all the time. I think them Ndombele could be so effective just 15, 20 yards further up the pitch collecting the ball. He is very good at coming deep and turning out of tight spaces. I get that. He's got great feet. He can go past the other centre midfielders and sort of join the attack. But I just want to see him 15, 20 yards further up the pitch. I want to see them threaded balls that Mitch was saying. I want to see him on the edge of the box sometimes where players are too scared to bring him down. That's where I want to see him when we're attacking. But I do get, like, you know, sometimes he does slip back behind Højbjerg to collect the ball from the back four, which is okay. But I just don't want to see it too much. I want to see him just 15, 20 yards further up.
100%. I think we can all kind of agree to that because, like we've all kind of said, we lack creativity, and if he's the man that's got it in his locker, he needs to be playing further up to feed those balls through. I mean, we've talked about the first half, and we know what happens in the second half. It all kind of falls to pieces. Now, there's a lot of chat on Twitter saying, I'm not feeling too happy about Nuno. And to be honest with you, I don't really know what he said in that changing room. I know Chelsea brought on Kante, and that changed the whole dynamic of the game. But I just felt there was a lack of spirit when they came out of that tunnel. So I'll come to you, Mitch, first. What are your kind of thoughts on Nuno? Do you think it was all Nuno's fault, or do you think it was a combination of a lot of different things?
I've said it 1,000,001 times now. There are so many different problems at the club that are meaning that we're in the position we are. And I'll be perfectly straight. I do think Nuno is one of them. I didn't want him in as manager in the beginning. And I think, yes, you got to give people time. And I'm not going to, start going about boasting Nuno out all of the time. But it is frustrating because I just get the sense that he's a little bit out of his depth. I feel like a club like Wolves was sort of the perfect fit for him. That club where there isn't those massive expectations. But, he'll have that capability to be able to perform well and get to there or thereabouts. But we don't want to be that club. And I just feel like when Nuno came in, it was very mixed in terms of opinions on him, rightfully so, because he was like sixth choice at that point. But I mean, his track record doesn't, again, fit what we want to be doing. I just, it goes further than the manager. And, I mentioned the players as well. A lot of the players aren't good enough. The squad is a lot thinner and more bare than it should be. Obviously we were missing the likes of Lucas and Bergwijn yesterday, and that was painful for us. And because they're both good players, they can both have an impact in a game like that. However, my main issue with yesterday is that it was so glaringly obvious how much of a better manager Thomas Tuchel is compared to Nuno. You can literally see it in Tuchel's face on the sideline, him thinking about, right, what am I doing here? What can I change? All of that sort of stuff. And then he goes in at half time. He gives the Chelsea players a kick up the backside, and he makes that change, that decisive change. I came out that at the start of the second half saying, why is he taking Mount off for Kante? Because, you'd think it'd be Jorginho or Kovacic. It worked perfectly because Kante had a free license to roam and push the players and break that press that we were trying to put on, and it put us under pressure. And I can't see Nuno as a manager that would be willing to make that change. Again, with the substitutes yesterday, yes, we didn't have much available to us, but they weren't the greatest subs in the world to try and get us back into the game. It was almost as if he was settling at that point. So it's really frustrating. And Sorry, I'll stop talking in a minute. I'm still going a bit of a rant. My biggest worry is it will only get worse if we keep losing. For example, if we lose to Arsenal on Sunday, it's going to get worse. And people will not have patience with him like they did with Mourinho, because he doesn't have that track record that Mourinho does. He hasn't really done anything massively notable. And he's going to be under a lot of pressure very quickly unless we start picking up results in games that we should be. I'm not saying we should have won yesterday, because Chelsea are a much, much better team than us. But, the games like Palace, Arsenal's always touch and go. But, games after that, Newcastle, for example, Aston Villa, if we're struggling and don't pick up any points in those sort of games, it's going to be a real issue for him only a couple of months in,
Yeah, I like these people have said here. I mean, they, like you said as well, Chelsea are Chelsea. Let's not downgrade them, because obviously, like people said, they're better class of players on the bench. I mean, only Hill's the only impact sub available really to us, and the fact but that is true. But you're saying on the aspect of looking at other games, there's no way in God's earth I think we should have lost to Palace, and obviously it's bad luck that we had Chelsea next. But against, obviously, I know that Arsenal are in form sort of at the moment, but we know that they're not great, if that makes sense. And if we go there the way we did against Chelsea in the second half and it just go to pot, I think we're going to have to be very worried, because Arsenal don't have that sort of, I'd say, quality that Chelsea have. So I think that is a worrying time for Nuno, especially obviously Wolves in the week and that game at the weekend. But I'll come to you, Karl, quick. Obviously, what are your kind of thoughts on Nuno as well? Do you have kind of sit on the same sort of side as Mitch, or like as in the next couple of games are going to be very difficult and he needs to watch what he's doing? Or do you think maybe it was necessarily what the options he had available just weren't going to beat this Chelsea side in the second half?
No, listen, Holes, you know my stance. Nuno wasn't the man I wanted. I still don't particularly, like I say, I'm not going to start a Nuno out, but I don't want him. I don't think he's going to succeed here. I think, and I'll make this very clear, I wanted Potter. After Conte, Potter was the man I wanted, because I look at the football Brighton had played over the course of a season, and that's the sort of football I want to see Tottenham play. And I don't think Nuno's got that. I think he's a very cautious manager, and I think this weekend, due to a bit of pressure to put a side out that went for it, he did it. But I don't think that's his natural. That's in him naturally. I think that was a little bit false, and he's trying to do something. For me, I feel for him a little bit, because let's face it, the squad isn't there, the quality isn't there, and we're still, and even when you look at that, I'm going to talk about players like Dele in that, because Dele just isn't contributing the way he should be. There are some stats out there and numbers that even play, Bergvin hasn't contributed the way he should have done with goals. Moura hasn't contributed with goals the way he should have done. The midfield don't contribute. So he hasn't got the greatest squad to work with. Let's be fair. He hasn't got a backup striker. So if Kane's not doing it, you can't bring him off, because you can't expect an 18-year-old in Scarlet to come on. But I just don't think he's the right man. I don't think he follows the so-called DNA that we want to get to in terms of style of play. But I do agree. Yeah, if we lose to Arsenal, if we lose to Wolves in the week and we then lose to Arsenal and their two bad performances, he's going to be under pressure, and a lot of fans will be saying that they want to change, and that he's not the right man. There's a big enough movement out there, and now people that are not happy. So there are more and more performances where we don't pick up results. As you say, Hollie, the Arsenal game is one we should be going into reasonably confident, because yes, they've picked up 2 wins, but they've been 2 1-0 wins against Norwich and Burnley. So they're not a side brushing big teams away. So we should feel confident we can give them a game. I think if you have 2 bad performances there, where the football is not great, and if Arsenal, worst thing, give us a 3-0 to Arsenal, I think the atmosphere is going to turn pretty toxic pretty quickly, especially with the football, because let's face it, Palace was Jose 2.0, wasn't it, in terms of how we went for that game. And I don't think the fans are prepared to sit through another season of that.
No, 100%. And that's the thing, Cookie. What's your kind of stance? I mean, Orange just said Nuno just needs a few Portugal players. I mean, fair enough comment. But obviously, Cookie, what's your kind of stance? Are you kind of on the same fence as these guys, or are you trying to look at it in a positive light, maybe?
Yeah, I'm going to stick up for Nuno a little bit. I thought yesterday's result was not down to Nuno. I felt that we played well first half. Unless Nuno got him in at half time and said, stop doing what you're doing because it's working, then it can't be his fault. We went out in the second half and we were just a completely different side. I understand Kante came on and he changed the dynamic for Chelsea, but he didn't stop 11 players pressing the ball. We just stopped doing what we were doing, the good stuff that we were doing. We just stopped doing it. It was just like literally like another team that come out in the second half. Like I said, when Nuno looks to his bench, he's got a 20-year-old Brian Hill and a 21-year-old Oliver Skip to bring on, and they could bring on Werner and Kante. That just shows a difference in management, what they've got available to them. And I get Tuchel is a good manager, without a doubt. But look at what he's got on the bench, available to him to change a game if he wanted to. Nuno just hasn't got that, and that's unfortunately not his fault. But like I said, 2 different teams, first and second half. I don't blame Nuno for that loss yesterday at all. I just literally think we just stopped doing what we were doing. Either we were happy with the first half and just come out and sat on that and expected it just to flow again in the second half. I don't know. Yes, Kante made a difference, but I don't think he was the main massive factor of us losing that game. I think we literally just stopped doing what we were doing. But I agree with the guys. If we don't get a result against Wolves on Wednesday and then go and follow it up with a loss to Arsenal on Sunday, the pressure's definitely on.
He's got to find a fix for that second half, isn't he? Because
and I think he needs to find
that was an Achilles heel.
He needs to find a settled side as well. Like I said, his squad has been so chop and change. He hasn't had his best squad available to him until yesterday, really. And let's be honest, Son and Dyer have just come back from injury. Romero and Lo Celso have just come back from Croatia. They've had no training time as a team to prepare for the game, really. So he was at a loss there. Like I said, 2 players just come back from injury and they're straight into the starting 11. So for me, he's not actually had his best 11 fully fit and available to him as yet. So I would give Nuno more time. Let's see what he can do once he's got a fully settled team and squad behind him. If he gets to January and he gets a couple of additions, who knows what might happen then. But I think we just need to give him time. Like I said, though, 2 result, massive week for him this week, massive 6 days coming up. And again, same for Arteta. I think that both managers are going into this game with a little bit of pressure. Like you said, Arsenal did relieve that pressure with a couple of 1-0 wins, but they're not out of the woods as yet. But they'll be up for it, Arsenal, don't get me wrong. They're looking to claw back that 9-point disadvantage that they had a couple of weeks ago and being bottom of the league. So they're going to be well up for this. And we all know they're up for it at the Emirates anyway. So I don't envy Nuno in these next 6 days. Trying to pick a team for Wolves to then prepare for Arsenal is going to be tough. Because Arsenal going to AFC Wimbledon this week, they can rest everyone. Literally everyone. They've got AFC Wimbledon. We're going away to Wolves. So we've got to put a team that can win the game, but then also have players fresh for Sunday. So it's a very, very tricky 6 days for Nuno indeed.
I wouldn't want to be in his boots, to be honest with you. What John says here, and as you can tell, I'm not a big fan of the man behind me, but I thought I'd bring this up because if there's 3 managers, there's still a constant, and it's some of these naff players and the big man himself, the bald egg. So it's an interesting comment from John, and I don't disagree to it to an extent. So it's just an interesting thing to pull up. Orange clearly has a thing against Dele. I come to you, Mitch. What's your kind of thoughts on Dele? I didn't think he really offered anything the other day. I know we touched on it a little bit.
Hasn't really offered anything all season. I think that I saw some sort of stat on Twitter yesterday, something like, I don't know, Lloris playing more key passes than Dele has this season or whatever. And I think that he gets scapegoated a lot. I do think that his performances deserve criticism. But I think that Harry Kane deserves just as much criticism as Dele for the performances they've put in this season. It's a difficult one because how long do you give him to try and recapture that form and reintegrate into that player he was in, the seasons when he was scoring and assisting all of those goals? And how long is it before you sort of turn around and say, well, we've given him 2 seasons and he's been pretty poor in both of them. It's time to cut your losses and move on with it. Having said that, we're not really the sort of club that do that. Whether Paratici will change that or not, I don't know. But Dele, it's a difficult one because I like him as a bloke. And I think that, of course, his potential and what he's shown for Spurs in the past has been really, really good. But he's been given so many opportunities already this season and he's not really taken them. You look at him yesterday against Chelsea and he was playing almost left back for the majority of the game. And I don't know if that's where he's supposed to be. If Nuno's told him that's where he wants him on that, I know he obviously wants him on that left side of midfield. But I just feel a little bit sorry for him because he clearly isn't playing in that position where he's almost playing in front of Harry Kane and he's playing on that last man. You know, the best bits of Dele came from Eriksen and, you know, Toby and whoever else playing those balls over the top through the middle and him making those runs, which we've not seen at all from him this season and the majority of last season. So it's a really difficult one. But it is frustrating at the same time because he should be able to offer more than that. He's a good enough player to offer more than that. And what I don't get is he is one of the players that covers the most ground in the team, but he is, you know, one of the players that gives us the least in terms of creativity and what he creates for the strikers. So it's a really, really weird one. My opinion's very mixed, let's say, at the moment on him. I don't want to hate too much, but it is getting a little frustrating.
That is the thing, obviously, Cookie, because you want him to do well, and obviously all that gym work in over the summer when he obviously wasn't in the Euros, you really thought this season would have kicked it on. And like Mitch says, he's covered so much ground, he's just got nothing to show for it, really. Yeah,
he's definitely bulked up and definitely looked to the more defensive side of his game and being strong and physical in the tackle. But yeah, I think it's almost like he's slightly muddled between the new role and the old role. And I think that's natural when you play a certain way so long and then you've been asked to do something different. I think it's going to take time to really mature in that role in the defensive side of it. And like Mitch said, he was finding himself in the left-back position yesterday. Whether that was because Reguilon was getting a little bit overloaded, I don't know. And he felt like he had to cover. But he needs to, I mean, for him to get back to where he was, 3-4 years ago, that's going to be a big ask. I can't see it. I can't see Dele Alli ever getting back to that player. So maybe that defensive side of his game has to come through for him to stay at Spurs and get and offer us something different to what he used to do. Because the way he's playing at the moment and the role he's in, he's not going to be arriving late in that box or early in that box to win headers or to put goals in, knock goals into the bottom corner from low crosses. That just ain't going to happen, especially if he's getting caught in the left back position. He's not going to give us anything going forward, to be honest. I think he either needs to move on and start afresh, or he really needs to hammer that roll down in the defensive side of the midfield. But either way, I can't see that Dele coming back.
And it is the sad truth. I mean, Karl, we've spoken about Dele Alli many times, and it's kind of like Richard says here. He became a massive player so young. Do you think maybe now this is just him plateauing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because, unfortunately, at the moment, Dele Alli, unfortunately, is a passenger most weeks, isn't he? Because, let's face it, he's not great running with the ball. He's passing. He's not like your most creative man who's threading through balls. So you do have the question of what are you actually bringing to this side, given the fact you are an attacking midfielder? You're not a sitting midfielder. You are an attacking midfielder. He was great when he was just bursting into the box. And we saw it in the Wolves game, didn't we, where he got the penalty, because he can time those runs into the box brilliantly. But you need to have someone supplying that. And as we said, with once Eriksen left, the one, I've always go back to the game against West Brom at home when, he got done for punching the guy in the stomach. And there was a big uproar to try and get Dele Alli to calm down. And unfortunately, sometimes if you take that fire out of a player, you can take something away from the player. And I felt that when he lost that nasty streak and everyone was like, we don't need you doing that, Dele, because you're going to cost us. There was the start of the decline for me. And we've never seen that player back, that same sort of player, that nasty streak. And, the documentary saw us, didn't we, that, when Mourinho was saying Ferguson wanted him at United because he had that about him, he had that in his game, that fire, that was a United player that Ferguson
saw. He's like a cheeky little brother, wasn't he?
That's right.
Brother. Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
And that kind of went out of his game. And from there, we saw the decline. And at the moment, he does have to kind of improve because I think it's something like 29 Premier League goals now without a goal from open play. And he's just not offering anything. So he's not a creative spark. He's not someone who's giving, taking the ball out and dribbling it and giving you time to reshape or regroup. So you are sitting there saying, well, what are you actually bringing to the table right now? And will he get too much longer to do it? Because performances, again, like this weekend, you are sitting there for long periods going, I forgot Dele Alli was playing at one point. We need to try and get him back. But I agree with the guys. I don't think we'll ever actually see that Dele Alli who's making them runs into the box and scoring them headers and getting onto them long balls.
If anything, I think he slows us down now, doesn't he?
He is,
When we do break away, too many touches, too long on the ball. He actually slows us down, to be fair, which I don't like to say because I do like Dele, but he does slow our play down. It's sometimes really frustrating, especially when we're on the counter, you know?
Yeah, it's just rather frustrating because, like we'll say, we want him to get back, but I just don't think he's got it in him anymore. I just don't know what it is. I mean, people in the chat have been saying he's got his mind on other things, and to be honest, like I say, I mean, football's your job. You can have hobbies, but sometimes I do think other things do take over his life. But hey, it's his life, and nevertheless. But another person that I seem to always keep talking about at the minute is Harry Kane. But like Mitch alluded to earlier, I think we need to talk about Harry Kane because yes, first half, I think everybody was on that game, but the second half, I just don't know what he's doing. I mean, Cookie, sometimes I see him out wide, I'm thinking to myself, or he's deep, and I'm thinking to myself, you need to get in that box, mate, because Sonny's on the ball and he's got no one to cross the ball to. So, Cookie, what do you make of his performance yesterday? Do you think he's still dwelling on that move, or do you think he just needs to?
Yeah, I think his head is not there. Harry Kane's a phenomenal player, and when he's on it and he's switched on, we've got one hell of a striker, as we know. But he's a shadow of himself. Like yesterday again, he was out wide. He's coming too deep, and I think Graham Souness touched on it yesterday. He said when our midfielders are looking up, Harry Kane's holding their hand. He's not in the box. He is lacking service, and that is a good point. But yeah, I don't know if is there a small little confidence thing there with like where the Man City didn't come in for him? Is it knocked him a little bit where maybe he thought he was getting that move to Man City and it actually never happened? Is he doubting himself? Is he missing Jose Mourinho? We all know he had a good relationship with Mourinho. Mourinho got the best numbers out of him. Got the best version of Harry Kane, if you like, that we've seen at Tottenham. Is there something with Mourinho there that he's missing that, or it's something I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's definitely something amiss with Harry Kane. Whether that is his mind's elsewhere, which we all think it is, but I do think there's other little factors like the Mourinho thing and maybe a little bit of confidence there, and the fact that Sonny as well yesterday was basically a passenger as well after a good first half, good press, good energy. And then as that game started to dwindle away from us, you could see both of them were just the shadows of themselves basically in the second half. And I think they need to feed off each other without service from like Christian Eriksen as the person commented there. Without that service, they rely heavily on each other. So if one of them's not doing it, the other one seems to follow. So I actually think our best performance of the season was when Kane wasn't there against Man City. I don't think we played as well as that game. And I think Kane coming in with this attitude of some sort of negativity or sulking or whatever it is that's going on in his head, it's not having the best impact on the team.
And that's the thing. I don't think Harry Kane's someone to really show his emotions, but there's something maybe, like you said, in his head that isn't really switching the links very well. I mean, Mitch, what's your kind of take on it? Do you think that is something that's playing on his mind? Could it be a confidence thing? Could it be that he's missing his grandmaster Jose, shall we say?
I think it's a bit of a confidence thing, to be honest. I mean, just watch, you guys would have watched him for England in the international break. It didn't look himself then either. He's missing one-on-ones that last season and in previous seasons he would have buried. So, I think Cookie's right. His head's definitely not in it completely. And I don't know whether, there's something brewing in January for him or anything like that. And maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. It'd be difficult. But I think that there's also another side to the story, and the other side to that story is we've not really been given him much. Like if we were playing that attacking football, then he would be having more of those touches in the box and getting more shots off and stuff like that. So it's definitely a little bit of a mixture because it's like there's no doubting that Harry's a world-class striker, and world-class strikers can have poor bits of form. And everyone's talking about it like it's the end of the world, and he hasn't scored in 4 Premier League games. That just shows how good he is, and it's almost a little bit damning because of what us as Spurs fans' expectations are of him, and that expectation is him to score every game, or if not every other game. So I just feel like because the whole team is struggling a little bit at the moment, he is struggling as well. He has looked like a bit of a passenger at points, I agree. But, you do also see him trying to rally the boys and keep them together when we do go a goal down. So it's a really, really difficult one because I don't like to believe that he isn't giving it his all, and I just don't want to believe that he's that sort of player. But it very well could be that he's not playing with that same enjoyment that he has done with a Spurs shirt on in previous seasons. It's definitely a mixture for me. But fingers crossed, he grabs a goal maybe against Arsenal, because that could be a massive boost for him. We'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Oh, sorry. Carry on.
I was just about to say, it's not the goals that really worry me too much, because that will come. We know Harry Kane's going to score a goal. It's just everything around that. It's the way he's walking about. Like the old Harry Kane, if it ain't working for him, he'll come and get the ball and make something happen. He'll get the ball in the half turn, he'll have a shot and make something happen out of nothing. We're not seeing that Harry Kane at the moment, and that's the worrying thing for me. That's the more concerning bit. He's not coming to make things happen. The game is just passing him by, like a bit like the cup finals he's been in. It's that Harry Kane that we're seeing, and maybe a bit worse, to be honest. That's the bit that worries me. I'm sure the goals will come, but it's just this. He's a player. He's an exceptional striker that can make things happen from a scoring point of view and an assist point of view. The Harry Kane we saw under Mourinho is 10 times what we're seeing of the Harry Kane we're seeing today. That's the bit that concerns me.
I mean, Karl, does it come back to the fact that Nuno's in charge? Is that lacking his confidence? The fact that man's only really won things in lower leagues, hasn't actually necessarily done something in the Prem in substantial matter, if that makes sense.
No, I don't think so. I don't think Harry would let that kind of be a factor in how he goes about his business. I just think you're seeing a guy that doesn't want to be at a club no more, and obviously has got a bit of a grudge about it. I think there's obviously the gentleman's agreement issue where he obviously feels he's been let down by Levy, that he obviously feels he had some form of agreement that he could go in the summer. I think, as Cookie said, I think very telling was his demeanour in that League Cup final when we lost, just standing there, glazed over, didn't really show much emotion. And I think there's also that mixture of being a bit unhappy about the way the club dealt with the Jose situation and got rid of him. And you're just seeing an unhappy man. But again, you're seeing one that isn't getting the service he needs. We've seen it in flashes this season. His first game back, scored 2 brilliant goals, the way that Harry Kane scores his goals. We saw in the week the through ball to Mora that gets him off and running to score that goal. Yesterday, the first half, there were touches, some hold-up play. Harry will score goals. 15-16 season, he didn't score for 4 games and went on to be the top scorer. If we give him the right service, he'll score. The problem, as we're saying this year, is I don't think his head's in it at all. He doesn't want to be at the club. And I think what you're seeing now is each week when the game doesn't start going the way we need it to, you're just seeing a bloke who probably every week is sitting there saying, and this is the reason why I don't want to be here, because of performances like this and players that I'm having to play with like this. And it's hard to get that out of your head. Once you know you want to leave and you want to go and play somewhere else and you feel you should do, it's hard to recover from that, to be honest.
Yeah, because we're used to a Harry Kane that drags our team over the line.
Yeah, that's right.
In some games, you're literally dragging us out of a hole, and that's not the Harry Kane that we're seeing. It's the Harry Kane that's, like you said, Cole, just don't want to be there. And when it doesn't go our way, he's not interested in dragging this team out of holes anymore. Yeah,
he is sitting there saying, "I'm fed up of doing this. I want players around me that can help me drag a team through a game if it's going against us. I am now tired of having to be the one that rallies this team." Yeah. And also, like I say, if you're feeling now that the chairman has done you over, which he might be feeling with that gentleman's agreement, if you go into work tomorrow and your boss has upset you, you don't want to be there and you don't want to do something for him, do you?
So yes, I kind of feel that vibe after today at work, so I can resonate with that 100%. Hopefully they ain't watching the pod, so that would be lovely if they ain't. But that being said, obviously we do have 2 big games. We've touched on it slightly, but obviously Wolves for me, I would like to actually get some happiness back before my birthday. So we're going to do a round the whistle stop tour of what our score predictions are and what we think is going to happen. So Cookie, I'll go with you first. What are your predictions for Wolves?
Score prediction is based on team selection. I think he's got to keep 5 or 6 players from the Chelsea game in that side, just to get minutes, keep ticking over. I think even Harry Kane could do with the game and try and get on the score sheet. I know we've got Arsenal on Sunday, but I think it's important for some big players to keep playing. Even Ndombele, the Celso, players like that. I'd like to see Tanganga come back in. if we play a semi-strong side mixed with a couple of fringe players, I can see it being a draw after 90 minutes and dreaded extra time. That's my gut feeling. My heart, I'd love to say 2-1 Spurs and get out of there and get through to the next round. I've just got this feeling it'd be 1-1 after 90 and go to extra time. But then I don't know what's going to happen after that. We'll see.
Oh, I hate that. I can't cope with that. But Mitch, what's your kind of thoughts?
I was thinking the exact same as Cookie, to be honest. I got a feeling that we will play a relatively strong team, which we should, because we should go for the win, and it's a cup competition. You know how the chairman feels about that and how us as fans feel about it. Again, I have to agree with Cookie. I feel like it could be a draw after 90 minutes and we could see extra time. You know, it might even be a similar sort of game to that Everton game, if you remember last season. Just like goals everywhere. I could see it being something like that. I'll go with a 3-2 after extra time to Spurs, I think.
Nice. Hopefully my heart can say that, because I don't know if I can. But as well as you, Karl, what's your kind of thoughts?
Yeah, I think a lot of it as well will depend on the side that Wolves put out. I think, you know, they might have their view on the Premier League and surviving this season. So if they put a weaker side out, I think we'll put a reasonably strong side out, because let's face it, we're not getting top 4 this season. So the cups are vital for us. I think we need to go big in a cup this season. So I think we'll put a reasonably strong side out, and I can't see Wolves matching that. And if that happens, then I think we can get a 2-1 over the line. But my fear would be if we kind of go weak and Wolves go reasonably strong, then I think they'll brush us aside. But I can't see it. I think Premier League survival for them will be their main goal. So I think we get through this 1-2-1. But it won't be a pretty game to watch, but it never is it, when it's Spurs, unfortunately. You're always behind the sofa and, you know, peering through your fingers.
Take anything just to get through,
yeah. Take one in off a defender, whatever, as long as we get through, because we really do need to concentrate on these cups this year, because, you know, we've not got the strength to go for a push in the top 4. So we've got to do something.
Also, I'm fed up of talking about the Audi Cup. That's a joke, by the way. But going the other way quick, obviously, the big one at the weekend, Arsenal. I'm hoping, obviously, Harry Kane needs that bit of motivation to score one against them. So, Karl, I'll start with you first this time. Arsenal score predictions. What are you going for, and how do you think the game will go?
Yeah, this will be a tight game, as we know. They are always up for it at the Emirates, aren't they? And they've had the better of us the last few times. We've never really played as well as I think we can do there. I'm going to go a 1-1 draw, because I think you've got two sides that, as though Arsenal have picked up a couple of wins, I don't think, you know, if their fans are on a high, I think you've got, you know, I think you're not out of the woods, as Cookie said earlier. You know, I don't think you're this side that suddenly turned the corner. And if we can get Son and Kane and maybe someone like Bergwijn back, we've got enough to cause them trouble at the back. But I'll go 1-1, and that'll be a tense game, I think.
Another one. I'm going to have to drink vodka watching. But Mitch, what are your score prediction? How are you feeling for it?
I don't think we'll win. As hard as it is for me to say that, it's our record at the Emirates is awful. It really is, and I can't see much change in there. So I mean, I'm sort of inclined to go for a 1-1 draw as well, or I feel like it'll be a tight game and it'll be a draw, or we'll lose by 2 or 3 goals in the end and capitulate like we have done in the previous few games. So either hopefully a 1-1, or obviously hopefully a win, or it'll be something like a 3-1 to Arsenal or something like that.
I was going to say, because 3-0 at the moment is the running theme to lose. So if you're going to put bets on it to lose, I think that's the one to go for. Obviously, Cookie, what's your kind of thoughts for the weekend?
Yeah, I think both sides are struggling to score goals, as you can see from our games. The games we've both won, it's been 1-0s. I've got a feeling it's going to be 0-0. I've got this feeling it's going to be a really tight, edgy game, but it's going to be 0-0. I can't see either team scoring on that game, to be honest. I'd love to see Spurs nick it late on if it is 0-0 for a long period, but I've just got this feeling in my head it's going to be 0-0. And to be honest, the way we're playing at the moment, I'll take a point there. Take a point and get out of there. To be honest, but obviously I'd love to see Spurs beat Arsenal like I always do. But yeah, I'm going for a really cagey, edgy 0-0.
That's the thing. I think at the moment I just can't take anything the way things are going at the moment. I think that's the only way to look at it. But thank you all for joining me tonight. We'll go around the room, see if we can all find. I mean, it's good therapy to get it off our chest. I mean, yesterday I was doing my pieces, so it is kind of good that we've left it to tonight. So we'll go around the room. So Cookie, also known as Tottenham Feed, where can everybody find you doing your thing?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Tottenham_feeds. Loads of news and views, loads of polls and debates. I love seeing what the Tottenham fans have to say about certain things and past and present, and see their opinions. And I'm also on Facebook. That Tottenham group, I think it's just hit 16,000 members now. So it's doing really well. Started it October last year. Again, fans from all different ages and countries, everyone having an input. Again, I do the same thing on there. I'll get everyone's reactions to things. And get some share some news and get some debates going. So yeah, that Tottenham group on Facebook and at Tottenham_feed on Twitter.
Quality stuff. Make sure you go check that out. And obviously Mitch as well, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, so I'm usually over on Twitter, having a little bit of a rant and a moan at things as it stands. I do like praising the team sometimes, I promise. But yeah, my out on Twitter is just Mitch_Fretton, as you guys can see. So yeah, just if anyone fancies dropping a follow or fancies a chat about Spurs over on Twitter, then go for it. I'd love
Definitely.
to.
Go and check them out. And also, I'd just like to point out that if you're watching, I'd just like to say Mitch has said rant and not rant. So there you go. Because he always pulls me up about that, Mitch. So I'm glad you say it that way as well. And Lily White Views, I always forget to call you that, Karl, just because I know you as Karl. So
No,
Karl,
that's all right, mate. That's all right. Yeah, it's only started this year, Hollie. So yeah, new channel, Lily White Views, going to be knocking some content out, a bit like yourself. But then you can always find me also on the COYS.com podcast. And actually this year, trying to just get around, and get on more shows and talk Tottenham as much as possible. So yeah, Lily White Views. Say everyone's welcome to come on, some different views and everything. We've had Cookie on already. Get yourself on at some point, Hollie. So yeah, get over there. There's always some good debate going on.
No, good stuff. I'd like to say thank you for everybody in the chat as well for joining me. Chris has come in with a great surname once again. I mean, yeah, I'll have to get a better birthday present from Spurs. But like I said, thanks to everyone in the chat. I mean, I'm not very good at putting comments up, but thank you for sticking in with me, guys. And like I said, make sure you go follow these lovely people on all their different things. And until next time, well, hopefully we have something better to talk about, like a win would be great. But until next time, come on, you Spurs.